Hello everyone, welcome back to the Talent 500 YouTube channel, and this is SDET interview series. I have created many more videos on the same series, so those links are in the description section. So I would definitely suggest you to go through those videos before coming to this one because all those are interlinked. So yes, so stay with us and let us know your input if you have any in the comment section. Hello, folks. Welcome back to our interview series. So, in our previous session, we have discussed thoroughly about what could be the possible framework related interview questions, right? And we have discussed how we should answer to those questions and what are the points we have to focus while answering those scenario based questions on framework. Today, we will move further, right? And this is kind of the part two of a framework related interview questions, and this is very crucial. Okay, if you are targeting for a job where the expectation is someone who is in testing field for more than 3 years or 5 years, then definitely you could expect framework related interview questions. And if you have experienced more than 8, then you have to kind of 100% know about the questions that we are discussing today, right? But for 3 to 5, it is very important to go through both the sessions, part 1 and part 2. So because what happens, it depends on the companies. In service companies, the pattern would be a bit different. In product, the pattern would be a bit different. So if you combine both the parts, it would be more beneficial for you folks. So let's start with the questions. Our first question is, can you explain the process of integrating a test automation framework with a CI/CD pipeline? Okay, this is very, very important. 100% you should aware that how your automation suite is part of your pipeline, right? So you can give an example, right? Okay, we have CI/CD pipeline with tools like Jenkins, Bamboo, or GitLab, whatever tools you folks are using in your project, right? And 2 to 3 points you have to mandatorily mention, right? Which tools you are using, how you are triggering your automation test cases, right? For example, in Jenkins, you can say like, okay, we have automation suite in our Jenkins, which we called as nightly automation suite, and it gets triggered automatically every day at 11 p.m. by using the cron job. So this would be the most precise and crisp answer. Okay, then you can say like, okay, integrate the test automation framework. You can talk about, okay, we have a project in pom.xml and we have integrated our pom.xml with the Jenkins, right? We are calling our MVN clean test goal in our Jenkins job, right? This would give more input, right, about what you are doing. Generate test reports, notify stakeholders. For example, in some of the advanced CI/CD pipeline, we have HTML report generation and sending those reports in email notification, right? So this would be your fourth point. Fifth point is how your pipeline is able to manage parallel test execution. Okay, if you have a cross browser parallel execution, or you have 700 800 test cases and you are executing it around 6 to 7 set of test execution, right? So those things also you can mention over here. But the primary first point and second point 100%, then priority goes to 3 4 and then 5. So you would explain something like, okay, we have a CI/CD pipeline in Jenkins. We used to trigger it on nightly basis at 11 p.m. We use cron job to schedule our Jenkins job. Once our execution get completed, HTML report gets generated and then email with that report triggered to all the team, QA and SDET team, right? And we also have, if you have Slack notification, you can say about that also, right? And you can mention that, okay, we also support parallel execution if it is there. Okay, but this is not mandatory at all. Okay, you can ignore the fifth point if you want, right? Sounds good, correct, folks? So from this is the way you should mention. Okay, 1 2 3 4 5, correct? And if any follow-up question will come, then you can manage it accordingly. But I would suggest, if you haven't used the fourth and fifth point, then you can ignore. Okay, fifth point definitely ignore. Fourth point, little bit you can say like email notification of Jenkins, right? You can find email notification of Jenkins in my blogs also, which is automationreinvented.blogspot. I will put the link over here. Okay, don't worry on that. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. How do you ensure maintainability and scalability in an automation framework? Very, very important. Okay, why very, very important? And this is mostly asked in 5+ years of interview questions, because they want to see that what kind of exposure you have in designing frameworks or maintaining the frameworks. Now, when I talk about maintainability and scalability, that means my framework should be a generic one. What do I mean by framework should be a generic one? So let me give you an example that I have a framework something like this, right? Now in this framework, I have not added any pages, right? Why? Just assume, okay, and I have only utilities classes, and I will have couple of main classes and drivers, test data, all those things, correct? So if I want to see in future that this project will be consumed by multiple projects, then what I should do, I should design in a way that my page class and my test class should not be part of this package, right? So you will create a consumable package which will contain all the Selenium methods, robot utilities, screenshot utility, retry analyzer, all those things, and that package you will consume while writing your automation test scripts, right? So for that, first you need to follow proper coding best practices, maintaining coding standards, code optimization, right? Because if multiple teams are consuming your framework, you have to put focus on time complexity and space complexity, right? Implement proper design patterns for modularity and reusability. For example, singleton pattern in screenshot utility, for example, builder pattern in API automation, right? Use configuration files to manage test listings for sure. Why? Because if multiple teams are consuming, they will use the configuration file as per their requirement, right? So you should give proper feature of configuration and environment variable setup, so it would be easy, because environment variable configuration file may differ from company project to projects, right? So if you are making your framework consumable, you should put focus on those points. Regularly review and refactor test scripts for sure, right? And implement version control, definitely, because you need to integrate your framework into Git or any version control system, because if you are not updating in Git, then it would be very difficult or impossible for other team to consume it. And now when your framework will increase, you need help from multiple teams, right? You need help from multiple SDET, automation, QA to come and contribute for the same, right? If you have some idea of Jira integration, then you cannot do all the things of your own. If you move it into Git, you can ask other team members to also support you and help you to make the framework more scalable, right? Or you can take inputs from different team if they are facing any problem, and you can then integrate those changes into your framework section. Hope that clears the this particular question. Now we can move to the next one, right? Next question. How do you handle exceptions and errors in an automation framework? So this is mostly they want to see that what kind of knowledge you have in try, catch and throws, frankly speaking, okay? Because these two are the major things: try, catch, throws. Many a time when we are writing code, I have noticed that people used to use throws because throws is easy. And when you go to the go to any exception, what happens? Usually we get an option where it will automatically ask us to add the throws, right? And we go with that option most of the time. Correct? So instead of that, you can also explain that instead of using throws, why it is better to come up with an idea where you can use try, catch, right? So in this one, you should explain one example. For example, just to give you an perception, here you can see I have used a try catch for our file reader, right? And then in the catch, I am using both IO exception and parse exception together. Correct? Here we should give a log.one, right? Any message. So those things you should mention when they ask you about exception and error, that you are handling exceptions using try catch. You used to send multiple things with like IO exception and parse exception together. You used to provide logger for every catch, right? Only printing stack trace is not enough. You need to provide a log, because that is a good standard, and you try to avoid throws. Now there may be a question that why you should try to avoid throws, because if I will use throws in data JSON data, test data fetcher, then whoever will call this method, that class also need to throw that particular exception, right? So that is the biggest problem. If I am using my JSON test data fetcher method in class or this particular method I have created, if I will put it in some another class, then I need, and if I have used exception over here, throws over here, then I have to do the same throws where I am calling this particular method, right? That's why we try to avoid those throws and all, okay? Keep that in mind, okay? Logging mechanism, very important, right? In every catch, you should have a logging mechanism in place, or else it would be very difficult to only do the debugging using the print stack trace. Correct? Okay, awesome. And in this section, if you have time, do go through couple of interview couple of concepts on this one, unchecked exception and checked exception. Okay, I'm just giving the hint. Go through this checked exception and unchecked exception. Very, very important, okay? Because they may ask you some cross question on that. Okay, so now let's go to the next one. How do you select the right test automation framework for a project? Very important question, right? This will come mostly 5+ years of experience. So now, and for test lead, very, very important. So this question, basically they want to see that what kind of exposure or knowledge you have across different type of automation framework available in the market. For example, you are working on a project and your team has around good number of SDET, and you want to do something in work on some framework which you can modify of your own, and you don't invest too much money into that, right? In that case, you have to go with the open source project, right? And as why open source? Because you don't have to invest any money, and as you have a huge number of SDET in your team, so you also want to add some more thing apart from the default package that you are consuming. For example, you will create a wrapper class on top of Selenium, and some of the methods you will design of your own, so that along with the Selenium methods, you are giving some additional benefit. But only when you have a team of SDET. If you don't have an SDET or automation team, you should go with the normal Selenium framework, design the normal framework, no need to write any wrapper class. Just create a framework and work on that. Correct. And if you have money and if you don't have much engineers, then you can go for some paid tools, right? That will reduce the effort. Correct. So all those things you should call in that manner. And what kind of resources you have? For example, you have 3 automation engineer, all 3 are in JavaScript. Then you cannot go with some tool which works with only Java. Then you would definitely go with Cypress. Right. If you have a resource pool who are in automation for a long time with Selenium, then you will definitely go with Selenium. So those calls you need to take, and how much integration capabilities it has, what kind of support and community. If you don't have any senior engineers, automation engineers in your team, then definitely you should go with common tools or frameworks like Selenium, because it has a large community and support. So if any issue also you will face, you can easily find the solution in Stack Overflow. But if you are going with some new tools like Playwright and all, definitely the support will be pretty much less as compared to Selenium. Correct, right? So you can explain the scenarios like this. Okay, give an example always. Okay, in my previous videos also I have told you, give an example or else it would be difficult. Got it, right, folks? Let's move on to the next question. How do you handle test data in an automation framework? Very, very important question, because test data is an important part. So you can say like, okay, whatever test data automation framework you are using, but you should first start your answer like, okay, test data is kind of an integral part of automation framework, and there are many ways to manage test data. For example, using JSON, for example, using Excel, for example, fetching it directly from database. But in our team, we are using this one. For example, you are saying JSON, then tell him that, okay, we have a testdata.json file where and we have created a JSON reader in our utility package, correct? The one I have shown you before. Correct. You can explain this, that we have a just explain the entire flow, that we have a testdata.json file inside our resources folder, right? And we have created a JSON testdata fetcher class inside our utility package to read the testdata.json file. Then we have a method inside it called as fetch testdata, which we are going to call inside the test case to fetch data from the testdata.json file. This is how you should explain the flow. Okay, don't only, if they ask that how you are managed test data, don't only say we are using JSON, we are using Excel. Just explain this, okay, how you are managing it. You are keeping a test data.json, you are keeping a utility package class, and then you are calling it inside your test script. Right, so this is kind of the perfect flow to explain this answer. Excel one, yes, Excel one also you can explain like this, where you are keeping an Excel file, which method is reading your Excel file, how you are calling that method inside your test scripts. Always keep these 3 thumb rules in your mind. Okay. How would you approach test automation in a product environment with continuous feature development? Okay, so what happens when you are approaching for a product company interview? This is a very common scenario based question, right? Why? Because the features change very frequently, right? And it is sometimes difficult for us to pace up with the same level of automation. For example, if you are in sprint 2, then mostly it happens like you are automating the things from sprint 1. right? Always one step behind, because it is with the frequent changes, it is very difficult to pace up with test automation, and it is not even wise always, because let's the sprint changes little bit stabilize, then only we should approach for the test automation. But you can say like you can say it in a way like, okay, if I am working in a product environment where feature development is very frequent, then I would definitely prefer to go with API automation more as compared to UI, because UI changes are very frequent and sometimes it is difficult to go and make changes in the locators. So I would prefer writing more integration test, right? I will focus more on the integration test, so that at least I will be assured that the services are working fine, and then whatever changes is happening in UI, I can plan like a one sprint behind the current sprint for automation, so that I will be assured that okay, things are pretty stable. Correct. And the next thing is you have to prioritize the test case. You cannot go and just start automating everything. Prioritize your test case with P0, P1 and P2, and focus that okay, you should first cover P0, right, for backlogs, and then you should proceed with P1 and P2, right? Awesome. So hope that clears, right? This is a very tricky question, so answer it in a proper smart way. Okay, explain in this question. You should also try to explain that how you have expertise in both service API testing and UI automation, right? Okay folks, let's move on to the next one. How would you measure the effectiveness of a test automation framework in a product or startup environment? Very, very important, right? Because see, whenever somebody is saying test automation, right, it is kind of improving your process or quality of your product, right? In that case, direct benefit you are not going to get, right? This is somehow increasing the quality of your product. Definitely it has impact, but it's not something like you are designing a feature and it will directly impact the number of customers in your product. Quality definitely impacts, but still, right? That's why having a proper ROI system is very important. Okay, first thing. Okay, and do calculate your test coverage. Always calculate that how you have increased your coverage, and prepare a quarterly sheet that in quarter 1 you have increased your coverage from 10 to 20, in quarter 2 20 to 30, in quarter 3 30 to 40. So when you present it quarterly, it would be more professional and it will give you better results. Okay, because in short term sometimes it is not that beneficial. Okay, always keep a larger goal and measure it quarterly. Reduction in manual testing efforts and time. Always put numbers that okay, I have automated 2 test scripts and it has saved around 10 minutes, right? So that will be like of effort saving for you. Speed and efficiency of test execution. This one very important. You can give put one section in your document that how much efficiency we have increased by test execution. For example, initially we manual testing takes around 5 weeks. Now we are doing it in 1 hour. Right. Early defect detection. This one also you can say like okay, as we have implemented for example service or API testing or shift left testing, we are able to detect our defects pretty earlier, right? Feedback loop time also, it's kind of you can add this point, but the point 1 2 is very important. How you are showing that test coverage is increasing, right? How you are showing that how much effort saving and time saving by implementing automation. Right? Always remember test coverage, effort saving, time saving. 3 most important things while proving effectiveness of a test automation framework. Right? Okay. Next question. What strategies would you employ to optimize the test automation execution time for a complex product application, right? So usually they will ask you a question like, okay, if you have a complex application like Amazon or Flipkart, right? Then how you will make sure that your test execution time has been properly optimized, right? Then what would be your answer? First thing is prioritize your test execution based on criticality or risk. So now what you can do, either you can come up with different test suites like smoke, sanity, regression, end-to-end build verification test, right? Or you can segregate it with P0, P1 and P2. Anyway, it's fine, right? But I would suggest prepare a build verification test suite. So whenever there is any new feature going, just run that, so that you will make sure that whatever changes this build is bringing, it is not impacting your existing feature. Because in larger product or complex product, that is your primary goal. Whatever new things are coming, at least it should not break the old things, so the existing customer will not get impacted, right? Leverage parallel execution, yes, because if you have to optimize things, then you have to run test cases in parallel for sure. You can give example like how if you have used any multiple containers, right, so that your execution will run in different containers parallelly, or you can give an example of Selenium grid hub and node setup. Any one would be fine. Third point, implement test data management techniques to efficiently handle and generate test data. Yes, instead of going through a rigorous process of creating test data, use the tools or many libraries in Java and Python which will generate the test data. Right, nowadays AI tools are also there to generate test data, so leverage that. Don't only depend on creating manual test data, okay, that will unnecessarily waste your time. So you can add some point like, okay, we nowadays the AI is in the market, so we can use some AI technology or tool to generate test data, or we can use some faker libraries. There are many libraries like faker is there, right, random data generation, many libraries are there in Java and Python, so you can pick any one to generate test data rather than depending on manually creating test data and putting it on some file. Use techniques like test data caching, test data. Yes, this is also a good point, but not so important. Okay, point 1 to 3 are important. 4 is not important. Identify and element any redundant or unnecessary test case to streamline the test suite. Yes, for example, many time it happened like we have some 6 to 7 test case in our suite, which is always kind of getting skipped, or we know that it is of not much impact. Then stop your execution and remove those test cases immediately if it is of no impact and it is of no use. Because see, if you have 100 test cases, 5 are skipped, anyway those metrics will impact, right? Whenever you show it, your metrics will impact it. So if it is of no use, remove it, right? No need to make it failed or skip for a longer period of time. Take action and remove it. But again, fifth point is not of much priority. 1, 2, 3 is first, fifth one second, and fourth one is the last. Fourth one you can skip also. That would be fine. If you skip the fourth point, that would be fine. Got it, right, folks? Okay, let's move on to the next question. What are the types of test automation framework? This is a very generic question, and I know that most of you are already aware of this one, right? But I have still mentioned this. The famous one would be data driven, keyword driven, modular, hybrid. BDD and TDD are just the approaches. I would suggest these days hybrid is the one we all use a lot, right? Because we combine data driven, definitely we have some data. Keyword driven are little bit reducing these days. We are not using keyword driven much, but still, if you have a team where 7 team members are manual QA and 3 are automation, then keyword driven is best. They just have to go and update the keywords in the Excel or somewhere, and the execution would be pretty faster. And you don't always need someone who is very good in test script design to come and work in your framework, right? So that's one benefit you will get. Data driven you cannot avoid. By default, everywhere it is there. Modular means, again, some modules, as I told, right, you can create a package which is kind of a wrapper class on top of Selenium, and that can be consumed by multiple projects, something like that. So that's why hybrid is the best way. BDD and TDD are just the approach, right? And for BDD and TDD, I will explain in the next video, okay, properly, because this is a very good topic. I will explain with proper examples that how basically the code looks like, right? And for that, I need your support. Do comment, put it in the comment section that you need a session on BDD versus TDD with code examples. Then I will explain it properly. You folks can understand that which one to pick when you are deciding on automation framework designing from scratch. Means you need to pick BDD or TDD and why, right? Okay, so basically I don't want to deep dive much into that because you folks are already aware of it, but have a look at it. Okay, sometimes they ask and we kind of caught up in a wrong moment that we cannot recall those definitions, right? okay folks, let's move on to the next one, TDD versus BDD with example, as I told, right? So let me first put it in a way. As I told, I will explain it in the next video more in depth, but this one I will give you a little bit context on it. Okay, I have created 2 examples on TDD and BDD, right? Basically, TDD is where you don't have to go through give and when then, right? Rather, you will directly write the code. For example, you have a scenario where you want to add 2 number called as 2 and 3. So now I need to check that the addition of 2 and 3 is giving me 5 or not. So if I will write in TDD approach, what I am going to do, I am creating an object of calculator. Calculator is equal to new calculator, right? Int result is equal to calculator dot add, and I am putting an assertion that addition is 5 or not. This is simple and crisp, right? In TDD, we write a test case before implementing the add method in the calculator. The test case defines the expected behavior to the addition, right? So we are creating an object, calling the method which will add the values, and then putting an assertion. Quite simple and crisp. By the way, I am little bit more inclined towards TDD. I am always try to focus that TDD is the best way to do BDD, unnecessary complexing things, because nowadays most of the peoples are technical, so they will understand this. There is no much importance of BDD, but yes, BDD is quite required in some of the banking clients also. But in BDD, what happens? We cannot write the code directly. Rather, what we need to do, we need to divide our code into three sections. That is given, when, and then. And what you need to do, there are two important things in BDD approach: feature file and step definitions. Right? In feature file, you will define that what are the features that you are going to test in more of an theoretical manner. For example, feature is addition, scenario is add 2 number, given I have a calculator, when I add 2 and 3, result would be 5. So now what you have to do, you have to add the steps and map everything in the feature with the steps. So here, whatever we have written in this test logic, that one will go inside your step definitions. Right? In step definitions, what you need to do, you need to define that what are the given, when, then will do. Right? So your feature should be mapped with your step definitions. It's kind of a one-to-one mapping of feature and step definition, and kind of your this piece of code of TDD will be moved into step definitions. Right? So basically we are doing the same thing, but we are mapping it one-to-one with the feature. So if somebody will read through the feature and he don't understand the code also, he will be able to figure out that, okay, this test case is basically doing or performing those steps. So it will increase the readability and help the person who is reading the code more easily. So in the given, I have added calculator, new calculator. In the when, I have added call the calculator.add, and in the then, I have just called the assertion. So whatever we have done in this, right, all these three things will be basically moved into step definitions, and those step definitions will be mapped it into feature. Right, folks? I will describe more in the next session, but I hope you got an idea, right? So TDD can be directly converted into BDD with the help of two things: feature file, step definition. What is feature file? Simple layman language, you are explaining the features, right, in a readable manner, and then you are mapping each thing of the feature with a step definition. And step definition is nothing but whatever you have written in TDD approach, just you need to put it in the one-to-one mapping of feature. So at the rate given, I have a calculator, that is we have taken from feature, right? And remember, this string should be mapped. Given I have a calculator, here I have written I have a calculator. When I add 2 and 3, I add the integer 2 and 3, right? So that it would be easy for you to map and it will work accordingly. Got it, right, folks? So whenever somebody will ask next time TDD and BDD, just don't give the theoretical answer. Give this an example, right? It will add value. Hope you folks have enjoyed this one. We will meet up in the next session again, right? I hope you guys have liked the session, and I have created a lot of series on SDET, so do go and check those out. And please subscribe to the Talent 500 YouTube channel, so that next time when we prepare a interview series, you guys will be notified about it. Till then, take care, bye bye, and do remember, if you have any doubt, put it in the comment section.